After the incredible success of RKO's King Kong in 1933, the giant ape became something of a cultural icon. Kong was famous around the world, particularly in Japan. After Toho Company got into the business of making giant monster movies in the wake of 1954's Godzilla, the Japanese film studio borrowed the rights to the character from RKO. Despite a bitter legal battle over those rights back in America, Toho produced and distributed their first movie featuring the giant ape, King Kong vs. Godzilla, which would prove to be one of the highest-grossing movies in the entire Godzilla canon.
King Kong can't make a monkey out of us.
After that, the only question for Toho was how to bring Kong back for an encore. The megalomaniac Doctor Who has built a giant robot in the image of King Kong in order to extract the highly dangerous Element X from the North Pole. When this Mechana-Kong fails, though, he resorts to kidnapping the real Kong from his home on Mondo Island. When Submarine Commander Carl Nelson discovers this, he and his crew chase Doctor Who to the frozen wastes, where they too are captured. Enraged by his enslavement, Kong breaks free and swims to Tokyo, where Doctor Who hopes to set the stage for a confrontation between the giant ape and the mechanical menace. Before we go any further, if you could hit that like button, this channel might escape from its own confinement in the depths of YouTube obscurity. If you really do like this video, please subscribe as well. Thank you in advance. With that out of the way, let's get back to the subject at hand. In 1966, Toho began working on a follow-up to King Kong vs. Godzilla in partnership with the American animation studio Rankin Bass Productions, which had managed to borrow the rights to King Kong through some impressive legal magic. This film, titled Operation Robinson Crusoe: King Kong vs. Ebirah, started to fall apart due to the unavailability of Godzilla director Ishiro Honda, which caused Rankin Bass to pull out. Toho, unwilling to abandon the project altogether, replaced Kong with Godzilla and released the film as Ebirah: Horror of the Deep, one of the more tonally awkward Godzilla films of the Showa era, though definitely not the weirdest. Around the same time, Rankin Bass Productions, in association with the Japanese animation studio Toei, began a groundbreaking collaboration to produce the first anime series made in Japan for an American company, The King Kong Show. Running for a total of 3 seasons, The King Kong Show was aimed at children, and in addition to featuring all kinds of wacky threats like aliens and robots, it spoofed spy movie tropes made popular by the burgeoning James Bond franchise. When Ishiro Honda became available for Toho again, Rankin Bass and Toho agreed to try once more to produce a King Kong movie, this time a loose adaptation of the King Kong Show called King Kong Escapes. Though still envisioned as a family-friendly picture, the movie's plot, written by Takeshi Kimura, who also wrote Rodan and the Mysterians and would later work on a few Godzilla films, removes the central human characters from the television show. Instead of a young boy and his family, then, King Kong Escapes features an American submarine commander and 2 subordinates, who all form a bond with the titular primate. To play the lead, they hired the character actor Rhodes Reason. Reason was not a fan of the script, of Ishiro Honda, or of Japanese cinema in general, but he agreed to the part because he, quote, couldn't turn down a trip to Japan, unquote. Alongside him is Toho staple Akira Takarada, probably best known for the original Godzilla, in the role of Lieutenant Commander Jiro Nomura, as well as the model Linda Miller as Lieutenant Susan Watson.
Well, I don't see how you can be amused by gorillas.
For the evil Doctor Who, no relation to the British television show, they cast Hideo Yamamoto, another Toho veteran who, like Takarada, also appears in Ebirah: Horror of the Deep. Doctor Who's assistant is played by Yoshibumi Tajima, most recognizable as the villainous president of Happy Enterprises in Mothra vs. Godzilla. The enigmatic Madame Piranha, who is billed in the American release as Madame X, is played by Mie Hama, who's not only in King Kong vs. Godzilla, but also plays a Bond girl in 1967's You Only Live Twice.
It's hard work.
For the US release, Linda Miller's lines were dubbed over by Julie Bennett, who also dubbed over Mie Hama's dialogue, even though Rhodes Reason was able to dub over his lines.
Kong! Stop that ship!
There are 2-sided reasons for this. 1. Miller was not a member of the Screen Actors Guild, and 2. She was still living in Japan when the dubbing took place in New York. Almost all the other male voices in the US version, including that of Doctor Who, were dubbed by master voice actor Paul Frees.
You think I wouldn't kill you? I could, and I would.
To play King Kong, the legendary Godzilla performer Haruo Nakajima donned the suit. He also appears in a cameo as, quote, curious spectator, unquote. I've tried my best to find him, and I think, though I'm not 100% sure on it, he's this guy. Hiroshi Sakita, who had previously suited up as Ebera, played opposite him as both the Gordosaurus and Mechanicong, and he too supposedly has a cameo, but good luck finding him as the, quote, security officer, unquote. Naturally, the effects were done under the supervision of Eiji Tsuburaya, the same man responsible for nearly all of the early Showa-era Godzilla films. There is some good miniature work, with the Tokyo Tower sequence standing out due to the fact that it had to be strong enough to support 2 men in heavy suits climbing all over it. I'll admit that King Kong looks pretty derpy, but like an animal that is so ugly you can't help but love it, the big guy kinda grows on you as the movie goes on. As for Mechanicong, a holdover from the original cartoon series, he's pretty great, and was so beloved that he inspired Toho to create Mechagodzilla half a decade later. Another Toho staple, Akira Ifukube, was responsible for the music. The King Kong themes are similar to Ifukube's famous Godzilla theme, but stand apart in this film with a more Bond movie-inspired blaring horn sound. It's not Ifukube's best work, but even an Ifukube at his worst isn't half bad. King Kong Escapes premiered in July of 1967 in Japan, in time to commemorate Toho's 35th anniversary, and in June of 1968 in America. Though there are a few differences between the American and Japanese versions, they reportedly aren't as severe as most other Toho films of the era. It's hard for me to say though, as the Japanese version has never been released in the US. It was a modest success at the box office in both places, though American critics tended to dismiss it. For Toho, it was popular enough that they tried to get the rights to King Kong for a third film, and even tried to get around those rights by making a film with Mechanicong fighting Godzilla in 1990. Though that film also got cancelled due to copyright issues, the idea Toho had for it sounds amazing, with Mechanicong injecting people into Godzilla to fight him from within, like a bizarro take on Fantastic Voyage. Toho has also re-released the film multiple times, most notably in 1973 as part of the Toho Champion Festival. Now, I'm not going to try to tell you that King Kong Escapes is a work of genius cinema or that it deserves to be put in the same category as the original Godzilla. I'm not even going to try to argue that it has a landmark place in Toho's giant monster canon. However, it's one of those movies that doesn't try to be anything more than it is. It doesn't have the subtext of Godzilla, Mothra, or Rodan, and it has some issues with pacing along with obnoxious sound effects that threaten to ruin the entire thing. But King Kong Escapes does manage to be entertaining on its own merits, a successful attempt to be nothing more than a fun, family-friendly good time. It offers homages to the classic King Kong with several scenes that are reimagined versions of classic Kong moments, and it dabbles in respectful satire of the spy genre. But at the end of the day, this is just a movie where a giant ape is pitted against a giant ape robot. In my eyes, it doesn't need to be more than that to be a sci-fi classic. And that's all for today, my fellow Earthlings. What other classic Japanese giant monster movies do you want me to cover? Let me know in the comments, and while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also consider joining my Patreon to get access to bonus content, get your name in the credits, and more. My patrons get to vote on one movie I cover every single month. You can also check out my website at emcgill.com, where you can find written reviews of plenty more sci-fi classics in both film and literature. Until next time, though, when we'll see a different kind of escape, this is the Unapologetic Geek, telling you to never be ashamed of what you love, as long as you're not hurting anybody.
You're a failure.
Not a chance of that.